Well, we'll make a start, guys. I imagine there might be a couple more people dribble in as we get going. But yeah, great to have you all on board. This is, a pretty exciting, I guess, product that we've been able to bring into our range over the last 6 months to a year. Already had some success with a few trials and whatnot across a few different farms. So it'd be great to introduce the technology to you guys and show you some kind of real world case studies where it's had a success. So yeah, just a bit of an intro. I'm Isaac from Fresh by Design. Presenting today, we'll have Thomas from Sprintex and then Ollie, who is also a project manager at Fresh by Design, will be talking us through a bit of a case study that he did when he was working for Sea Life Sunny Coast. So if you have any questions, pop up through the course of the presentation. Feel free to whack them in the chat. If not, we'll hold them off till the end and be able to ask Thomas or Ollie or myself, and we'll get going. So over to you, Thomas.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Thomas Avadell. I'm from Sprintex Limited. Thanks for taking the time out of your day today. I'll give you a quick overview on who Sprintex is. You may not have heard of us. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, so Sprintex Limited, the company relisted in 2021. We're ASX listed. We specialise in high-speed permanent magnet motors. We come from a hydrogen fuel cell clean energy background, and that technology, we looked at that technology. We've done a number of significant pilot projects, but hydrogen uptake is not ready yet, basically. And so we looked at the technology we had and thought about possible ways to introduce it to a wider range of applications. Industrial blowers being commonly, people are still using technology from 30 plus years ago, inefficient technology that produces excess heat, consumes oil. And we thought we could do something different, something new, smaller, lighter, more energy efficient and less maintenance. So today we're going to talk about two of the product range. We have a bigger range than this, but this is more specific to aquaculture. So we have the G15 range, which has 4 configurations. That's the small one. And then we have a much larger axial flow jet blower, which is in another category, essentially. We have the product's been recognised by the United Nations, WPIO Green, which is for sustainable agriculture solutions for technologies to tackle climate change. So they've recognised it as significant energy savings, which is fantastic for the climate. But you guys are probably all here to improve your profit margin, and one way to do that is reduce your operational costs. So power in Australia is pretty expensive per kilowatt hour, and we can save a significant amount of power. So that's why we're here. So with the two ranges, the G15 can produce more pressure, and it's kind of going to give you good pressure and good flow up to 13 cubic meters a minute between the 4 configurations. And then if you need a lot higher flow, then we have a bigger machine, or you can run multiple smaller machines depending on the setup that suits. So we say that the G15 is more for higher pressure applications and smaller systems, smaller tanks, hatcheries, small wastewater treatment setups. And then the big machine will work for your bigger ponds. What we do is we can provide one blower to multiple ponds. Next slide. All of the range is completely oil-free. So I don't know how readily used rotary lobe blowers are in Australia, but in other markets, they are a popular option. They require oil. The side channel blowers don't, but they are obviously very energy intensive. So we provide oil-free solution. The only maintenance essentially is air filters. So 3 to 6 months, swap the air filter. We have a pre-filter that can be washed and reapplied. but there's no oil, so no risk of contamination. Next slide. This is the curves for the 4 G15s. You'll see a bit of overlap. What we suggest is go to Fresh by Design with your working point, and we'll work with them on finding the optimal solution in terms of energy efficiency. So for your flow and pressure, we have all the compressor maps. These are more basic flows, curves, but we have compressor maps where we can identify the most efficient zone on the compressor. Most of the time, you'll see over 70% overall efficiency. Put that in perspective, side channel blowers are 30, maybe 40% overall efficiency. So you're grabbing a big chunk of overall efficiency there. The way we can size it a little bit just as a rough sizing if you wanted to get pricing quickly. It's 3-to-1 in terms of kilowatts for side channel blowers. So 12 kilowatt would go down to our 4 kilowatt. And our 4 kilowatt machine, that's the max power. So they're all variable speed. There's no additional VFD. We use an inverter and it's running in DC. So just a touch of a button, you can adjust the speed to get the flow and the pressure that you require. They have auto restart functions. They have Modbus integration for third-party PLC systems. We can take inputs from your DO sensors to react to what you need, and the machine can speed up to provide more air or slow down to save energy. So all of that is on an integrated touchscreen or can be controlled by the third-party PLC. We can add IoT, so Internet of Things connectivity, provide alerts. In Australia, we can do email, not SMS, but in other markets, we can give you a text message, but you'll get an email if something's up and you need to see what's going on with the system. So as I said before, power consumption for side channel blowers to the G15 is about 3-to-1. So we replace a 12 kilowatt with 4. It may not consume 4, it may consume 2.5 or 3. It just depends on the setup, but 4 would be the max power consumption. So even on projects where you're using like a 5 kilowatt or 6 kilowatt, you put in our 4, it doesn't mean you're going to use 4 kilowatts. It could use 1.8, 2, it depends, but it's rated to 4 kilowatt. And then we have the 7.5, which we've replaced side channel blowers up to 22 kilowatts. I mean, the side channel blowers, those ones are going to be over 120 kilos. You need an additional VFD if you want to control speed. You need control boards and other components, whereas our system is a plug and play integrated system. You can set it up on the touchscreen yourself or have it controlled by a third-party PLC. Everything, it's a single package. You just plug and play and away you go. So, and 12 kilos as well. So anyone can just pick it up and bring the box in and plug it in and set it up. We even have, we're okay with silicon connectors on the outlet, PVC piping. Due to the efficiency, the outlet temperature is going to be a lot cooler than other technologies because inefficiency is expressed as additional heat. So I know in aquaculture, you may have to use stainless steel piping. It's expensive. We can get away with PVC piping because the outlet temperature is going to be a lot less. So this is a fish farm in Turkey where they replaced 3 side channel blowers for 1 G15. So our distributor there has software and hardware to track the exact power consumption. They've gone from over 13 kilowatts down to 3.5, which is pretty significant if you scale that up at the prices we pay per kilowatt hour. Next slide. Yeah, as I said, we can monitor all of the blowers. So if you choose to have IoT installed, Sprintex will be able to see the blower and see what's happening and alert if there's any issues, automatic alerts via email if the blower's gone down or there's something going on that doesn't make sense, like the outlet keeps increasing, the outlet temperature is increasing over time, potentially your filter needs to be changed. These are the type of alerts we can provide by monitoring every single blower in your fleet. And then I'll talk now about the axial flow range. So axial flow range is a different style compressor head. You saw on the little G15, it had like a turbo similar to a car turbo on the back of it. That's a radial flow. Both are centrifugal impellers, but the way that the flow is pushed around it creates more pressure on that system. This one has a more open style axial, like a jet engine from an aeroplane. Both are super high speed in terms of RPM, 80,000 for a G15. But this one has more of an open style impeller, so the flow goes through the compressor head, and we get a lot higher flow at lower pressure for projects like where you have multiple ponds, or if you need to do degassing or very shallow, low pressure ponds. Or this is the one where you could potentially replace multiple blowers with one. We have a conical diffuser that reduces the velocity on the outlet, and then you can connect multiple pipes to the diffuser. So we've seen projects where you can replace, 15 side channel blowers with one of these in a bigger size. These are 5 of the size options, so from 15, 22, 37, 55, and 75 kilowatt rated shaft power. So this is a lot bigger machine, obviously more expensive, but if you can replace multiple units, then you're going to save a lot of money because it's really efficient at these lower pressures. So yeah, we're still looking at the best applications in Australia, but in China, there's a lot of prawn, they call them shrimp farms where they have a lot of ponds. So yeah, smaller, medium-sized ponds, shrimp farming, larger RAS systems, degassing, shallow waterhead, lower pressure, high flow systems would suit this machine really well. Next slide. Yeah, so just to kind of recap, it's been recognized by UN for sustainable aquaculture and agriculture. We can save up to 70% in your power straight away. We have a smart pulse aeration mode, which will pulse the water to save energy, basically constantly speeding up and slowing down the machine to grab the energy savings in between the slowdown, or it can just slow down based on inputs from your sensors, your DO sensors. We have had data come from China where we looked at the DO of a side channel blower compared to our blower at the same flow and pressure, and the DO was significantly improved, and we think it's due to the outlet temperature being a lot lower. But we want to do more investigation, but the price per kilowatt hour, just straight flow and pressure, like for like, is significantly less, but we also think there's a DO improvement as well. The machine itself is really, really quiet. All of them are really quiet. So if you're replacing roots blowers, super noisy, or a centrifugal fan, it's really noisy, like over 82 decibels. Without even an acoustic enclosure, we'll be closer to the 70 dB. And we do have, for the G15, we do have an outdoor enclosure solution that will come flat packed if you need to put them out in the weather. You don't want them out in the sun or the rain, so there'll be a special enclosure for it. And as I said, we have the option to provide monitoring via IoT and extended warranties. Complete solutions.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks for that, Thomas. We'll now just jump over to Ollie, and he'll give us a bit of a talk through an application where he installed one of these 4 kilowatt models up at Sea Life Sunshine Coast.
Cool. Thanks, Isaac. Thanks, Thomas. So guys, as Isaac mentioned at the start, I was the curatorial manager for Sea Life Sunshine Coast, so I oversaw all of our marine operations. And so I've got quite a lot of experience in the operational sector. So hopefully today I can sort of let you guys know as an operator what it's like to actually go from a side channel blower to one of these units and kind of what we learned along the way. Aquariums are typically, they're quite old facilities, especially the Sunshine Coast facility. So trying to integrate a unit like this into an older facility, it's quite difficult to determine exactly what unit you require. So I'll sort of explain that along as we go as well. I'll try and not go into too much detail on the specifications of the blower, given Thomas has done that for us today. So yeah, I suppose first of all, the background of why we had gone with a change in unit, and something for everyone I think here to consider is we were able to get some green energy funding by showcasing that installing this unit would show us a significant energy saving, and so that's how we actually got the funding for this unit. And that is something that I believe across multiple states there is some government green energy funding around, and there's several case studies now showcasing the success of this unit and basically doing what it says on paper. So something worth considering. Now, our previous side channel blower, we had it clamp meter tested, and we were consuming about 9.7 kilowatts continuously. The significant downsides with this unit, other than the power consumption, with a significant weight, our unit, I think it was about 150 kilos. So when we did do a replacement on this unit, we had to get either a crane installed temporarily, because we had this underground and we had very limited access. So we used to have to get it dropped down through an access hatch. The corrosion on the unit was also another significant factor, and the excessive heat and the noise, which I think is something that everyone here has probably seen themselves as well. The new unit we chose for the obvious reasons. We'd seen the energy savings we were going to get. That was a huge deal. We had also seen the cost saving that was going to bring, but also really serviceability, especially for an aquarium at the time. It's quite difficult for us. We do a lot of that servicing ourselves, so trying to limit how much we do so we could focus on the animals was a big factor, and still something that is relevant in the aquaculture industry as well. So I guess the cool thing with this unit as well, the first time I had actually been introduced to one was through a company like Fresh that had come around, and they'd showed me the units, and they said they had it in the back of their ute, and I thought that sounded a bit insane after dealing with side channel blowers. But yeah, I went to his ute and he pulled it out and just held it in his hand, and I was like, there's no way that thing is going to do what it says. So it took me a bit of convincing with my management team at the time to actually say, look, I genuinely think this thing can somehow push out the same amount of air as our side channel blower. And then ultimately we got the funding to give it a go. So again, just sort of comparing blower for blower, what we had started with was it was an 11 kilowatt side channel blower. It was consuming, when we tested it, about 9.7 kilowatts. The weight, I think I've got it listed as 191 kilos there. I think it was a little bit under. The noise, 84 decibels we'd measured. It was very loud. The new blower, we were able to get it down to about 71 decibels. We did have a few other sort of LSS components in the room, so probably was a bit quieter than that again. The maintenance, by the time I had left Sea Life Sunshine Coast, they'd had that unit in there for about a year, and it's going great still. But the old unit, as I sort of mentioned, we were having to replace that every 2 or 3 years. So I won't go through this one because this really just goes through what Thomas has explained. So for us, the first thing that we sort of ran into with this unit is we initially didn't really have the figures on what we actually required from an air point of view. So we thought, look, the easiest thing to do is just get the biggest one, because it still on paper was a bit smaller output than the existing side channel blower we had. So we thought, worst case, we can just dial it down a bit. The reality is, when we got the first unit, which was a 7.5 50 kPa unit, we found very quickly it kept choking out on a high pressure alarm, and it turned out the unit was actually too big, which was not something we had ever considered. We assumed that worst case we would just dial it back, but we literally couldn't dial the larger unit back enough to meet our air requirements. So did some troubleshooting with Isaac and Thomas at the time, and quickly realized that we actually needed the smaller unit. So we got the smallest of the range. I think it was the 4 kilowatt 40 kPa at the time, and installed that, and it was perfect immediately. The actual savings that we found on this, so as I said before, we were pulling 9.7 kilowatts on our old unit. When we tested the G15, and we tested when I say tested the G15, because it's got the inbuilt display, it gives you all of these figures, which is really nice. So we could see, we could get it operating, pushing the air we needed through all the displays and the tanks. We were getting 2.7 kilowatts on the screen, which was, a massive saving from 9.7. The energy savings from a cost point of view, our existing unit was costing us about $11,500 to actually run the unit, whereas the estimated cost to run the new unit was just over $3,000, which is huge and pays for itself very quickly. This was something we sort of put together just to kind of showcase, 1 year. You can even say, okay, a savings from the old unit of about $9,000 sounds great, but it's when you really consider what that looks like over, a decade, you could be talking absolutely huge money. And we were just a facility with one small unit, whereas, some facilities, as Thomas mentioned, we could be dealing with dozens of units. So I'll just skip over that one. I'll go to, so this one here, just from the ROI. This is our big favorite figure here on the right, the scenario 2. When we looked at the sort of blower only ROI, we were getting an ROI of 7 months, which, typically most are quite happy to get something under sort of 3 to 5 years. To get something under 7 months was just an absolute no-brainer, and this caused a lot of our other aquariums, not just in the country, but around the world, to actually start considering these units as well, because globally, they were going to see massive savings as well. The full installed ROI, and the reason I put this is just to showcase what it could look like if you bringing external contractors to do the install for you, which is what we did. We had an electrician come in and do some modifications. We actually had a PLC system operating the aquarium, so we were able to connect it into that as well, which would manage, we could adjust the flow, we could get alarming all through the PLC, which was nice. But even with all of that, even with the plumbing install, we were still an ROI of about 1 year. So I guess some of the lessons learned, especially from an operational point of view, it's rare that everything goes perfect. So the obvious things that went well was the simple install. Like, this thing got delivered at reception, and I was able to pick it up myself and take it downstairs, which, would have been quite an ordeal if it was the side channel blower arriving. The energy savings, once we got the unit installed, it was quite clear this thing was working very well, and very easy to manage. The filters, very simple. We sort of could do that even with our general operations team, rather than having the maintenance team have to do, additional work. It was a very easy unscrew to remove and change the filter out. Some of the unexpected wins, we had always accounted for the larger Sprintex. So to be able to switch down to the small unit was a good win. The other thing we actually found is, in the environment we were installing, and something to consider, is it's much quieter than a side channel blower, but it still is an extremely powerful machine, so it does put out a bit of noise. It's a more of a high pitched tone, as you might expect from something that's effectively a turbo. So we were able to add a silencer cone, which you might have seen in one of the previous photos. There was nothing too fancy about this. It was just sort of a stainless steel shroud that went over the filter and just kind of helped buffer that noise a bit. Depending on the location you're installing, if you're in a more open space, you really probably wouldn't be too worried about this, but good to know there are the options. Some things we might have done differently is, after seeing the unit installed and seeing how simple it was, we probably could have done the plumbing ourselves in-house and saved a bit of cost there. Sizing the unit up front is something that we hadn't considered being a factor because of the control the unit offers you. But yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. If you can size the unit specifically to your airflow requirements, you of course should do that. It's also worth noting the sort of ranges that you can control the unit are kind of banded within the output of the machine. So you can't necessarily go down to 1 kilowatt or the absolute minimum airflow. There are still some bands you work within. Some of the things we wish we knew earlier. So I'd say not something necessarily to know earlier, but just be aware the unit, it comes with a lot of monitoring and a lot of control, and that is a good thing because it will not just run and burn itself out like a side channel blower typically would. It will tell you when it's under strain. It will tell you when the pressure is out of range or it's overheating. It will give you all of those warnings. So that's something to sort of be mindful of when you're connecting the unit, that you really want to get that setup phase, well ironed out, so that the unit doesn't shut itself down. Depending on the application, I believe you can actually turn off some of those alarms and controls if you just want to keep the unit running within the range you've chosen.
Yeah, just on that, sorry,
Yep.
Ollie. With the speed settings, they come out of the box from 60,000 to 80,000 with 5,000 increments. There's a hidden screen that we can access with the end users to adjust the 5,000 increment down to get a more exact flow. Or we can, if we know that the pressure is a little bit lower, we can unlock lower than 60,000 RPM to reduce the power. But we want to know a bit more about the project because if somebody runs it at the wrong speed, it will damage the unit. So that it comes out of the box safeguarded, let's say. But if we know more and work with the clients, we can tweak it to where they want it. And if we're happy that the machine's running in a comfortable zone, we'll let them access that.
Yeah, that's effectively what had happened in our initial application. We couldn't quite get the band of speed that we wanted, and you could quite clearly see with the original unit that it was oversized and overpressured, which, to be honest, is a good thing. It just showcases that there's not really a concern of these units replacing side channel blowers, which was honestly our initial concern. The device is extremely powerful and capable. And one thing we also really liked about the unit was the level of control it gave you is you could control it via the speed you actually wanted. You could even control it by the kilowatt usage. So you had quite a few different options depending on the application, which suited us. We kind of knew roughly what speed we wanted, so we were able to go down the route of speed control on the unit versus kilowatt. And even then, in the future, at Sea Life, we were going to have this integrated into the PLC, connected into our DOs for the tank. So instead of running at that low 2.7 kilowatts, it would actually fluctuate up and down depending on the DO levels within the tank to even further reduce it. And yeah, just a good note there that's on this slide was also just again the replacements of filters. Like we were able to grab a couple of filters with the delivery of our unit, but super simple to install and cost effective compared to servicing of typical blower units.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that summary, Ollie. We'll now jump over to the Q&A slide, and I've got some pricing listed on the different G15 models that we talked about today. We're still working with pretty early days, I guess, into the axial blowers that Thomas talked about before, but if those are of interest, do reach out and we can price them up according to your requirements. So now, if anyone has any questions, feel free to jump on. Now would be a good time to ask Ollie and Thomas, as they got the most experience with these units in operation. So any questions? And also, I know there's a few New Zealanders in the call, so I can send you the New Zealand pricing of the units after this. This is all in AUD.
Yeah, I got a question, Isaac. Tony Charles from Australian Prawn Farms. Sorry. The question, thanks, gents. That was really, really good and interesting to learn about these Sprintex blowers. We've got a combination of in our smaller kind of rooms. In our large prawn hatchery, we've got side channels, and in our two main rearing rooms, we've got roots blowers. Not exactly sure of all the specs. It's been a little while since I've looked at them. we often find with the roots blowers, especially when we've got 22, 23, 10,000 litre parabolic tanks in each room. And we often find when we're giving water exchanges and we've got tanks at different depths, I guess this is common with blowers, you get some with really good aeration, some the air really drops out. When we do water exchanges, the pressure builds up and starts dumping out the pressure relief valve. And it's it's a pain in the ass and a bit of a fine balancing act trying to set the aeration right with these roots blowers at that time of day. Is there any, I want to say, advantage? Does these Sprintex blowers, would they largely kind of mitigate that problem when you've got tanks at different, you got multiple tanks, but you got tanks at different depths and different volumes, trying to get constant air in each tank?
So do you have one? You have a roots blower doing multiple tanks?
Yeah,
The
one
same
roots
blower?
blower doing 22, 23 tanks. And it's often a little
Hmm.
bit pain in the bum. I do understand, of course, any kind of energy is going to take the easiest path. So that's why they
Yeah.
gravitate towards those tanks with lower volume, lower pressure. But the problem that happens is that when we do the water exchange, sometimes, when we fill the tanks back up, all of a sudden it just starts dumping out the pressure relief valve, and then you got to go out there, and it's really, really finicky trying to get the flow right.
Hmm. I guess
Yeah.
it's maybe struggling to build the pressure. Maybe the blower's choking a little bit. It's hard to say. What's your water depth on those tanks?
Or probably about 1.2, 1.4 meters deep.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
pretty low pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the axial one, we would use a conical diffuser to reduce the velocity because the flow is so huge, and then
Yeah.
you connect up your 20 outlets to that. Of course, you're going to get more flow when the water level is lower because it's going to go, like you said, it's going to go to the easiest sort of spot. But at that pressure, I don't have any concerns with being able to provide the flow. Your shallower tanks as you exchange the water are probably it's just gonna be expressed as a little bit of wasted energy. It's because they're going to get a bit more air, but there's so much air available on those machines that I wouldn't have any concern with the machine not being able to keep firing and keep producing what you need. Yeah, I guess one thing we can do is just take a photo of the nameplate of what you've got. Because the roots blower it's kind of better at a little bit higher pressure, to be honest. So it's probably not the right technology anyway for that water depth.
Yep.
Yeah. Or you could swap to multiple of these smaller ones that are on the screen. But to keep it simple, if you've got one blower doing the whole lot, I would just stick to that. So we'd look at the axial flow.
Yep.
And matching it up for you.
Yeah, and there's no real requirement to have pressure relief valves when running these, Tony, just because there is an inbuilt pressure transmitter that you can kind of see on the outlet there. So if you had a set flow or a set pressure that you're trying to maintain, then those blowers will maintain that if it's within its range curve.
That'd be handy.
Yeah. So,
Because
so I
pressure
can
relief
imagine.
valves are bloody a pain in the bum. Actually, to tell you the truth, with this will like amuse you equipment suppliers. We've actually zip tied the pressure relief valve shut because they were just so sensitive. I know the pressure relief valves is different to the actual blowers, but some of the pressure relief valves we have here, it's just I've tried adjusting them so many times, but they just pain in the bum. So I just zip tie them shut just so we get adequate air to the tanks.
Yeah.
The other follow-up question I had, sorry on that, Isaac, that's great that we don't need the pressure relief valves with these. The other questions I had was, Thomas, at the start you said that so look at my notes. I think you said you can just press your button and dial the pressure down or the flow down.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that just is that just a 1-2 step change, or you got a fair bit of range there?
No, there's quite a bit of range there. So it's on the touch screen. So if you're using speed mode, the standard would be 5,000 RPM increments between 60 and 80 on this machine. But we can adjust it down to like 1000 RPM increments. So you'd have to push the button a little bit more, but you can dial into a more accurate zone. But on your setup, it sounds like you might be better using flow mode, where the machine will speed up and slow down to maintain flow and pressure. And therefore, when you reduce your water level, you'll save energy because the machine's not going to need to do as much. And then when it fills back up, the speed will adjust. It will go back up to where it needs to be to make that flow and build that pressure.
Yeah, that'd be a really good feature because, I think Ollie was mentioning that he had up at Sea Life. We've got pressure sensors in all our lines. So if a line blows out or something happens, we know that we've got a maintenance issue there or a blower's failed. But often we get alarms when we do water exchanges again, when we're changing volume in tanks and it gets outside its ideal range and the alarm goes off and then it starts dialing bloody all the managers and it actually is a real pain in the ass too. So having that ability that it can sense and like adjust the flow, I think would be a great feature.
Yeah, for sure. So as the water's shallower, you're going to save energy rather than just blowing bubbles out into the air and wasting power.
Yeah.
So Tony, just for like comparison on your tank volumes as well, the ocean, we had the smallest unit we had connected to a 2.5 million litre Oceanarium with about 20 valves at 4 meters depth, and then it was servicing every other tank across the building, which ranged from 100-litre tanks to a couple of 1,000 litres, all with a huge array of different plumbing sizes going in. And we didn't have any issues getting the unit to kind of deliver the airflow that we sort of needed, and with much more capacity as well.
Oh, fantastic! Sounds like a lot's changed in blower technologies in the 22 years that we've had these roots blowers installed.
Yeah,
you're not the only one still using things that are 30 plus years old, mate. It's but this is also like we're doing something different and unique and really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with speed and size. That's why the machine is so small, because the speed is so fast. So with the high speed, we can use a smaller impeller and provide the same flow and pressure. And with that speed, the noise, as Ollie said, the decibels is low, but it's also a high pitch. So your workers and people around the machine can actually talk to each other because the pitch of the human ear, so not all decibels are created equally. It's a comfortable sound to be around. I had a project in Turkey for an anodizing plant, and they replaced 7 22 kilowatt side channel blowers, and the next day the workers went and told the management that the machines had turned off, that it wasn't running. But it was just that much quieter. They just couldn't believe it. There was 7-hour machines running, and they thought something had broken because they're so used to such loud noise.
Oh, mate, yeah, I used to run the hatchery. I don't anymore, but I used to love at the end of our main season we could turn the roots blowers off because it'd just be nice and silent for a couple of months till I'd use them again. Sorry, I'm hogging the floor. There's one more question before I get off and let other people ask. With the I think you said that the blowers, these G15s come with an option of a touchscreen. Is that correct?
It's standard. They're on every single one.
So they just connect to Wi-Fi?
It's IoT, so there's like a SIM card basically.
Okay, yeah.
But if you want to connect to your system, like your PLC, there's a cable. There's a data cable, a RS485 communication cable. And we can provide the cable, and then that lets your PLC provide information to our blower, and they can talk to each other, and then it can adjust the speed based on DO sensors or other sensors that you may have in your tanks, pressure, water depth. We have our own temperature and pressure sensor on the machine already. We give you power consumption on the screen, pressure on the screen, speed on the screen, several modes to run the machine in. So for more basic setups, you can just plug it in and set it up on the screen and run it like that, and then rely on our IoT monitoring to let you know if there's something going on. But on bigger farms and more complex setups, it's probably going to be connected to their PLC.
Yep. Lovely.
We have
Thanks,
a
gents.
software
Thanks for the
engineer
info.
that we can provide the right communication protocols and map the software correctly so that they can talk. You can use Modbus, TCP, Profinet. Alan Bradley is available with an additional module at additional cost, but most of the PLC communication protocols are going to be seamlessly integrated.
Lovely. Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions, guys?
Just another one, Isaac, I thought. Is it possible to grab a copy of this presentation?
Yeah, I'm recording it as well, so I'll
Yeah.
be able to circulate at the end, just the recording. So if you want to share it around, feel free.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Dramas. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, then we'll wrap this up. So yeah, thanks everyone for your time today. It was great to showcase this new bit of technology that we think has got a lot of promise in Australia and New Zealand to replacing a lot of the side channel blowers that are currently in operation, and hopefully save your operations a fair bit of money in the long run. So do reach out if you are wanting any pricing or any further information. As obviously we tried to keep this relatively short to keep it at a summary, but we can size any applications that you might need. We work closely with Thomas at Sprintex to make sure that we try and get that sizing as accurate as possible. Obviously it's pretty new technology, so we are still learning it ourselves. So we'll be able to work through with the best of information that we have at hand. So, and then all these models are currently stocked in Australia, so they are readily available at the moment.
Yeah, and the other thing is we can provide the absorbed power calculation before you get it to site. So if you're considering swapping something old, that'll help you figure out how quickly you're going to get your ROI. Because we can give you the absorbed power based on the compressor map for that working point, if you know the working point. Otherwise, it can be a little bit more rough, and a third of the power for side channels and half the power for roots. But if you want the exact power consumption, we'll just want to know your flow and pressure.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Thanks everyone for your time today.
Thanks
See you later.
very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the
Bye-bye.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.